So why is it so hard to finish something? What's up, peeps? You know, I'm getting ready to go pick up my son from school. I decided to force myself to walk. It's only like 8 blocks or something, 10 blocks. But I'm going to take my son with me, my other son who stayed home sick from school with a headache and is now playing video games. And I've been trying to get him inspired to do woodwork. He has a class he does in school. It's not a shop class per se. It's more of kind of the all around hands on approach to various topics. Point being that I've been trying to get started on a project with him to where I sit down. And so I went out there and I set aside some boards and some particular pieces of wood that I had to build a birdhouse. And I thought it would be a great project for us. And we're getting ready to do that right now. And in the meantime, here I am wasting time making a video. But the point of this video is about finishing things, not starting things. I have two problems when it comes to motivation. And this is the interesting thing, and I think a lot of you might relate to this. If you consider yourself a not motivated person, or some people are overly motivated people, what I've found for myself is that it's very hard for me to get motivated to start something. But it really just takes getting up and doing it. And I'm going to use this cliche term that I remember hearing a million times back when I had cable like 10 years ago on this drug commercial about somebody dancing in the field because they take this drug and they feel great. And it said, a body in motion stays in motion. And it was aimed at older people. And I thought, yes, that's true. Of course, I've heard this before. But for some reason, it just sticks. And I always think this. Because when I get really into something, there's no stopping me. Now, a lot of you know, of course, was a carpenter in the past. And when I'd go to work, it would be hard for me to get up sometimes because I have back pain. I had sciatic pain that kicks my ass. And lately, it's been all messed up again. But the point being that it would be hard for me to get out of my car, get my tools out, load everything up, and then get started. No, drink my coffee. But boom, I get started, and I'm in there for 10 hours busting ass, and I get a bunch of shit done once I start. But there's another aspect to this, and this is why I'm making this video. It's not about getting started. It's about finishing. And this is something that's often overlooked. When we talk about motivation, we also have to talk about completion. Now, if you work in a career, let's say, where you're in the service industry, or you work in a career where you're in manufacturing, you're never really quite done. So therefore, you can feel satisfied in knowing you just put in your time, did your job, or let's say you're just finishing parts to give to someone else. But let's say you're building a guitar like I'm trying to do. I counted the steps, and there's like 50 different steps or something to making a guitar. And each one of them is unique. Has to do with metalworking. Some of it is resin or cutting, fine detail work. Some of it has to do with cutting bone for the nut, knowing the hardware, understanding the pickups and the bridge and all these different components that go into it, and also finishing and painting, and the frets are metal, and there are so many aspects to it that when I jumped into it, I knew it was going to be hard, and I worked my ass off building the first neck and body for the guitar. Then I didn't have the components to finish it, so I said, I'm going to build a couple more, and I've been working on this. And I'm kind of laughing at myself right now because I know where this leads. I either pick my ass up now and finish one of these things, or else it'll end up being what it was before. Because the body for that first guitar I made has sat out there in my garage for about 6 years now. I made it so long ago. And back when I was trying to make my first acoustic guitar, it was really just using scraps and seeing if I could slap something together. But I told myself back then, no, I need to complete it and I need to do it properly. Why is it so hard, though, to come to that last moment where you finally complete one thing and you're totally done with it? Like when I take on tasks around the house. If I decide to clean something or do something, I end up, wash half the windows, and then I do part of the dishes, and then I move on to doing something else and something else. Now, this is perhaps more related to me individually, but I know some relate to this. I refuse to address it as ADHD. I know people like to use that label as being distracted, Attention deficit, I think we all kind of have it these days, and I have tried really hard over the last several years not to get sucked into, let's just what I would call the TikTok epidemic. Not specifically TikTok, but this short little bits of information which brings us to wanting short entertainment and this and then we expect quick results. We want to whoops through something and be done with it and know that have the knowledge that we need. I think this is detrimental to society as a whole, especially since a lot of kids these days aren't learning any real trades. You know, people are moving away from learning these long form educations, like carpentry, for example. It's kind of ridiculed or looked at as, oh, well, I mean, let's say people look up to the carpentry as a trade, but nobody wants to be one, right? But following something through to completion as a carpenter is difficult at times. I worked on a lot of houses, where we would spend 2 years on one house, like a lake house that we literally blasted the roof, not literally blasted, but we call it blowing it off, but we tore the roof off and we tore out all the rafters and we raised the whole house up another story, because if we had rebuilt the house, they would have a different setback from the lake, and they wanted to be as close as possible. Rich people. But when we got done with that job, it was sad, when you complete something, you kind of have to let it go, And as I write, lots of different papers and poems and stories, and I have a couple books that I've been working on for a while, as well as my documentary about opioids, which is now up to something like 80 pages long, and very detailed, and has all the specific, information in it, but it's 2 years in the making, 3 years in the making, because I started doing it well before the pandemic. So time flies. It's important not to miss the moment. It's important not to put ourselves down, but to remember that if we just get started on something, sometimes when I'm in my zone, nothing can stop me. I don't like distractions. Like when I'm out working, right now I have my shop set up out on my back porch. My chop saw, all my routers and table saws and everything's just crammed in there. And I was looking at all my tools thinking, holy shit, I've been wanting to do this for like a year now. I want to get back into my carpentry skills. Just because my back gave out doesn't mean I should quit. I feel like I cheated myself. But I guess what it comes down to is remembering not to look at what we didn't do or what we could have done differently as a negative. But remember that everything is a learning curve. Every single thing that we consider a negative is a positive. Just like every mistake and every failure is teaching us not to make that same mistake again. And if the reason you aren't starting something or you aren't pursuing something in your life because you're afraid of failure, do it anyway. And if you think you have other reasons, really do some soul searching and ask yourself, why don't we start that new business? Why don't we, try something new and different? I've done it so many times, I can do it again, and I'm doing it again. It kind of reminds me of wanting to move. I mentioned my family and I want to move and buy land, and we can't afford land here in Washington because it's so expensive. So I've been looking in Kentucky. And everyone I pointed this out to has had something, let's just say nobody has had any positive reinforcement on this. Not a single person I've talked to has been like, maybe one or two people, but family and friends are often like, well, are you sure? Oh, well, there's just a bunch of country people out there, and you might be too far away from the city, the schools, you might not get along with the people, and they don't like strangers, and all the different things. But the one thing I remember is that the reason why people feel that way is because it's scary to start over. It's scary to try something new. One of the most frightening things that you can do is not just start a new career, but start a new life in a new place. For my family that's lived here in the Pacific Northwest for our entire life, moving out to Kentucky would be a crazy change of pace. And you know what? I might not like it. I might fail. My noble intentions of going out and harvesting my own lumber, setting up a little sawmill, drying wood in my barn, building guitars out of the wood that I harvested, these kinds of things they're noble thoughts. But they're thoughts that are definitely possible. And to follow through on things like this, you realize there may be no completion. You just have to kind of take it as it comes. So, in a nutshell, my words here are hopefully inspirational. I want, in my own life, I try my best to be the best person I can. I want to harm nobody else. I want to burden nobody else, even though I do at times. And I want to really feel good about the things I do in my life. And there have been ups and downs. But just remember, when it's up, keep it up and keep working. Because everything we do in our lives is just like our careers. It's just like in the back of our mind, we always know we want to be better people, whatever that might take. And we know when we're not living to our full potential. And the best we can do is just give it a shot. Peace, love. Talk to y'all next time.